Congratulations, you got a silhouette. A new world of crafting possibilities has opened to you, but you're going to absolutely love it. There's a bit of a learning curve, but just keep watching those tutorials and you'll have the hang of it in no time. Today, I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction to what each of the buttons around your design space um, mean and what they do. So here's your design space right here, this white area. Normally it's defaulted to 12 by 12, but you can use this panel here to change the page setup. So you can change it to 8.5 by 11, and then it will be the size of a sheet of paper. And that's something you might want to do if you're doing print and cut things that you can learn about later. But I'm going to keep it at the 12 by 12, which is the size of your common um, print mat or cutting mat. Um, Now I'm going to bring in some clip art, and I found a new way to do this, which has really made me happy. I've had my silhouette forever, and I didn't know how to do this. But if you have a folder, you can just click on the folder, and it'll have your designs in it. I have tons of things, but I'm going to bring in this little picture of birds. And if I just drag it over here, right outside of my design space, I now have it open. You can also go up here to File Open, or just the Open folder right here to open a design, but it opens it into an entirely new document. So dragging from the folder is the best way to bring it into your design space. So here I have two birds, and right now they are not cuttable. They're just a picture there. So if I want to trace them, then I need to go over to my tracing menu right here. And you can select your trace area to trace the birds. Now, I chose this picture to show you because sometimes it doesn't, the other part of the picture doesn't always show up. So I can move around my threshold a little bit, and it will finally highlight that bird. So then I can just click on trace, move this out of the way, and now I have the two birds that are cuttable. Something else you can also do is you can trace by color. So I want to trace this bird that didn't show up previously. If I do this and the box is this close, when I click trace, it's going to create a box around it. I don't know if you can see that box, but that's not what I want either. So I'm going to go to trace by color and then drag this box out so that it is not closed in, and then click on trace and it will trace that bird right there. Another thing that I can do is that I can go select my picture, and then I can go over here to my palette, color palette, and I can change it to whatever color I want to. And that changes just the inside so you can see it a little better. I can also change the line color. I can change it to that exact color too. If you notice up here, the colors change, so that's another shortcut to changing the color on your birds. So this is the fill box. I can change this to whatever color I want to right here, and then you're able to see it a lot better. Now I'm going to go over some of the ones over here. This is point editing. So if I didn't like something about this bird, one of the points, I could change it or delete it. So I can double click to bring that up, or I can click here, and then you can change anything about your points here. You can drag them out to make, you know, whatever you want to on your design to change it up a little bit. Maybe I want to pretend that's a wing. You can also click on here and delete points so that they go away. And then you can also, if I made a mistake and I don't really want to do that, I did too many, I can undo one time, or I can go to this multi-undo button up here. And that takes me back to, I don't want to edit my path, I want to go back to the original bird. And that takes it all the way back there without me having to press undo many times. Another thing that you can do is you can draw shapes and lines. So I might want to draw a circle. If I do that, it'll be an oval. If I press the shift button on my keyboard, it makes it an automatic perfect circle. It does the same thing with squares. So if I want to do a rectangle, I can, or I can press shift and it takes it to a perfect square. Now it automatically um, makes a red outline and no fill so that you can see if anything is overlapping. Because if anything's overlapping, it's going to have that cut area right there too, and you want to be able to see that. So that's why it starts out as no fill. You can also draw if you need to using the draw tools. And then you can also do text. So I wrote earlier, you got a silhouette. And then if I want to change the font on that, I just click on it and go over to my text menu and I can change it to any font I want to. These are some of my most used. And then you can go and change the color again as well, so that it looks nicer on your design screen. Or if you're using print and cut, or if you're showing a customer a mock-up, you might want to change those into colors. Another thing that you can do is the post-it note, and then you can just say, I used this design on a cup, so that it will be notes for you to have for later. And this really helps me out a lot, knowing what I use for cut. Maybe I'll change the cut settings on it a little bit or anything like that. Also, you can use the eraser here. So this will just erase part of your design. So that erased part of the design, or I can erase the tail here if I want to do that. And then this is the knife part. If I want to cut, part of it in half, then I would just use the knife. And after, it keeps the knife around, so you need to go back to your pointer. Also up here, it gives you options. So you could do a solid cut or an outline cut. You can do a straight, any of those. I'm going to go back to my pointer, and then it has cut it into two parts there. Also here, if you want to open the transform panel, so I can select these two things and I can center. I can also vertically center them. I could space them horizontally. So that might, if you see these three things, I can center them, and then I can vertically space them so that they're evenly spaced out between each other. Another thing you can do is you can replicate. So you can do different duplications of any pictures that you might have. So I can also use the replicate panel. And what I do here is if I want to replicate my photo, I just click on it. I can do fill page. I can, and then it will put as many as you have room for. So that might come in handy. You can also duplicate by rows and columns. You can mirror it. You can rotate. So lots of things you can do there. Another thing that you can do is this panel here. So that's when you might want to have a space cut out there of this exact one, of this exact shape. So you would just select them both and then do subtract, and then it would create a space there. You can just try all of these. They all do different things. There's tutorials out there for each of those, but they divide, weld, subtract. So if you want to make this one piece, another one that you may use a lot is you select both pieces and you weld them together, and then they become one piece from now on. So weld is something you use a lot, and a lot of fonts that you have, they are not welded. So if you have hello, I'm going to change this to a font here. As you see, there's some overcut. And so this is where you'll want to use the weld. So that weld tool is found here, but you can also right click to access it and click on weld, and then it welds the font together so that it no longer cuts into your letters. And the tool I just used up here, you can drag to zoom into a specific area, or just a plus minus zoom as well. There's also the offset. So if you want to have your birds and you want to cut an area around them, you can go to your offset tools and you can just click on offset, and it creates this nice little border around it. You can change the distance of the offset to smaller or larger. You can also do an internal offset. So if I click on that, that would create one on the inside. So there's the internal one and the external one. And that comes in handy sometimes as well. These down here, if you want to create a pop-up card, also if you want to do a Curio or Cameo 3, if you have those, you can use the stipple panel. So these are more specialty. This is an emboss panel if you have the Curio, the nesting panel as well. And then there's also some extra ones here. These are specialty ones that you probably don't want to get started with right away, but there's rhinestones here. And then also the layers panel. This one does the warp panel, so if you're doing cups, you can change how the fonts look. You can measure your cup and change these measurements, and then warp your font so that it looks straighter when you put it on the cone. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is clean this up a little bit, and maybe I want to print out hello and the birds. So I'm going to change this just so you can see it a little better. So I have my birds and I have hello, and I'm going to cut this out on vinyl. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go up here to the send panel, and it's going to show me what is going to cut. So it's going to take just a minute. I had to turn my silhouette on. So it shows me all the things it's going to cut. I just wanted hello and the birds, so I need to drag this off. As you see, everything in the gray over here doesn't cut, so I use this quite a lot just to put things over here that I don't want to cut but I still want to have access to in my file. So it's just going to cut hello and the birds now. You can see the outline in red of what is going to actually cut. Those are your cut lines. And here's where you change your material. So you can do heat transfer, but if you do heat transfer, you need to have it mirror imaged. And those are things you can look up specific to projects that you're going to do for other tutorials. I'm just going to do a glossy vinyl. And then all you do is press send. It already has the speed, the force, all of that. This right here tells you what cut setting your blade should be on. If you do not have an automatic blade, then this will tell you what you're supposed to do. And then you just click send and it goes directly to your silhouette. Okay, and I can go back to my design area. So those are just a few of the things that you can do with the buttons around your silhouette. I hope this gave you a little bit of an introduction to your machine. Thank you.